Have you ever felt that something in your relationship no longer makes you happy? But maybe you're not sure if it's really the right time to end it, or you don't know how to do it. Perhaps you've wondered when it's right to leave a woman, and most importantly, how to do it in the most mature and respectful way possible. So in this video, I'll help you understand the signs that indicate it's time to end the relationship. How can you handle the breakup without hurting the other person? And so, how to leave her, let's say, in the right way? If you're in this moment of uncertainty and want to better understand what to do, and most importantly, how to do it correctly, watch the video until the end, because I'll provide you with a clear guide to ending things with respect and confidence. If you don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm Daniela Coin, a professional educator and Jungian coach specializing in men's personal and relational growth. So I help men feel better about themselves and, as a result, have more beautiful and healthier relationships with women. And relationships, like the seasons, have a natural cycle. Some last a lifetime, while others end because one or both partners change, grow, or simply realize that the connection is no longer the same. Breaking up is certainly not easy, but doing it the right way can make the difference between a painful ending and one that allows both to move forward with dignity and respect. So let's look at when it's time to evaluate and end the relationship, meaning to break up. The first sign that it's time to end things is when the relationship is clearly toxic. That is, if this relationship is a continuous and relentless cycle of arguments, misunderstandings, emotional manipulation, or physical or psychological abuse. This is a clear sign that it is absolutely time to leave the relationship. A healthy relationship should enrich both partners, not wear them down. Yes, occasional arguments or misunderstandings can happen, but if they become the norm and do not lead to mutual personal growth, the relationship should end. Especially if you often feel anxious, drained, or constantly on the defensive, this means that the relationship is doing you more harm than good. The second sign that it's time to end the relationship is if there is no longer love or attraction. Because relationships can survive many challenges, but not the absence of feelings or attraction. So if you no longer desire to make love with your partner, or she no longer wants to with you, or if you no longer feel strong emotions for each other, then staying together just because you don't want to break up out of habit or out of fear of being alone will not be beneficial. It will lead people to feel unwell, to experience depression and discomfort, unnecessary arguments and staying out of guilt, or to avoid making the other person suffer. This too is wrong because it will only prolong the inevitable, making the separation even more painful. The third sign that it's time to end things is if you no longer share values and life visions. We know that at the beginning, when you are deeply in love, differences can seem secondary, but over time, they can become insurmountable. And if you dream, for example, of traveling while she wants absolute stability, or you want children and she doesn't, or you have opposing views on career, lifestyle, finances, or personal growth, these can be reasons that, in the long run, turn the relationship into a battlefield or simply lead you to take separate paths. In this case as well, it's time to consider whether ending the relationship is the right choice, especially if you're unable to find common ground through dialogue. The fourth reason why it's better to end the relationship is if you feel like you are no longer yourself when you're with her. Because if, in order to be with her, you constantly have to suppress who you are, suppress your personality, your dreams, or your way of being, this is a clear sign that it's time to end the relationship. Because love, true love, doesn't ask you to change your nature or be someone different from who you are, but rather helps you grow without losing your essence. The fifth reason why it's better to end the relationship is if it drains you instead of enriching you. When the relationship feels more like a burden than a joy, more like a problem than a benefit. When you no longer feel connection, lightness, complicity, or beauty, then perhaps it's time to let the other person go. A relationship can certainly have difficult moments, but overall, when you sum it up, it should be one that nurtures you and helps you grow. If that's not the case, then it's time to end it. But be careful, I want to make an important clarification on this. Many times, a relationship becomes nourishing and manages to enrich us. If we manage to understand what it is telling us, what that particular situation is explaining to us, because every situation, even every crisis, every argument, every difficulty, every lack of desire is telling us something about ourselves. And if we are capable of understanding the message and working on ourselves to resolve it, or at least to integrate those parts of ourselves that we are not seeing, then any kind of problem in a relationship can become a resource. It can be an input for our personal growth. If, on the other hand, we are unable to do this, or we don't want to pay a therapist or a coach to help us, then we will see every problem as something insurmountable that will wear down the relationship. So, the exact same situation can be a source of benefit or destruction. And often, almost always, it depends only on us. And finally, the sixth reason why it is better to end the relationship is if there has been or there is infidelity, especially if repeated, or a significant lack of trust. Because yes, making mistakes can happen, but if betrayal or lies and generally a lack of respect become a constant, it means that the bond has deteriorated to the point of no longer being recoverable. Trust is the foundation of all healthy relationships, and even if sometimes it is difficult to build and especially to maintain, it is undoubtedly a key element of a functioning relationship. If these pillars are missing, then it is clearly time to reassess everything. Before explaining how to leave her the right way, how to avoid suffering yourself, causing her pain, or at least minimizing the pain of the breakup, I need to tell you something very important. Starting from March 31, there will be 3 mini courses, one per month, March 31st, April 22, and May 26th. And each of these mini courses will help you develop inner balance, overcome loneliness and neediness, and gain emotional and mental value, as well as a conscious masculinity. You can find all the details below to sign up for the mini courses. They are right here in the video description. There's also a link in the first comment, and in the link you'll find the full explanation and, most importantly, the link to pre-register and get a 50% discount. Now let's see how to leave her the right way. Because yes, breaking up is definitely a difficult and painful process, but there are ways to prevent the closure from being excessively traumatic. The first way is to be clear and direct. That means, first of all, you need to be sure that you really want to break up with her, and then you must avoid beating around the bush, delaying, or saying ambiguous phrases like, I need time, I don't know what I want to do, I love you, I don't want to leave you, but I want to leave you. So if you already know that you want to end it, just tell her. Speak to her honestly without creating false hopes. This is very important. Don't leave any openings or doors ajar because maybe you might have second thoughts, or you're afraid, or you're unsure if you really want to end it. You should do it only when you are certain that it is the right thing to do. Second, avoid hurting her unnecessarily. So, avoid accusations, humiliations, blaming her, or bringing up past mistakes. When a relationship ends, both people share responsibility. If you think she's more at fault than you are, you're probably mistaken. You might not be seeing your own responsibilities. Sometimes this mistake happens. Some people say, but she behaved badly. Yes, but what did you do to lead her to behave that way? Or in any case, why did you choose her? Why did you allow things to reach that point? We always have our share of responsibility, even if we don't see it. So forget about blame, just tell her what you think. If you manage to end things respectfully, both you and she will be able to process the pain and separation without fueling further anger. and resentment, which are useless anyway. 3. Be honest and give her explanations. Because providing an explanation in a respectful and sincere manner is certainly helpful for the other person to process the closure. As I was saying, it shouldn't be about blame or attempts to hurt her, but rather clearly stating the reason for the breakup without assigning fault. Because understanding what happened and even discussing it together is very important. It also helps the other person process the separation. On the other hand, if you don't provide explanations, it distances her from the possibility of processing the breakup quickly. 4. Avoid ghosting or sending cold messages. Because if your relationship was meaningful, especially if it lasted more than a few weeks, it deserves a dignified closure. So leaving without saying anything, disappearing, ghosting, or sending a short message saying, "I don't want to continue anymore," and then blocking the person or shutting down all communication channels is not very mature. I understand that some people struggle to face a breakup or have reasons for wanting to end things abruptly, perhaps because they have been deeply hurt. And this is understandable, but we also need to consider the other person when ending the relationship. So, if you need time to process things, you can take a few days or a week saying, "I want to end this, but let's talk about it in a week and I'll explain everything." Or maybe you send a short message with an explanation and postpone the in-person conversation until you feel calmer. But clearly, do not leave the other person without an explanation. Because if the roles were reversed, you wouldn't want that. 5. Please make sure not to leave any openings or doors ajar, especially if you have no intention of coming back. And I advise you not to want to go back if you truly want to end things, unless there are real, specific, and concrete changes in the way you or the other person think, behave, or live. So, unless this change happens, there is no point in resuming the relationship after some time, because otherwise the problems will be the same or slightly different, but they will still persist. So if you have decided to end things, if you have decided to move on, don't leave any doors open by saying, "I don't know, we'll see in the future," or things like that, because this would keep the other person tied to a hope that may never come true and could even affect their future relationships with other people. So try to help her process the separation in the best way possible, especially if you are certain about ending things, which you should be, because if you decide to end it, you need to be sure that you truly want to. If you're not sure, don't end it. 6. Accept her emotions. So be prepared for emotional reactions, because she might get angry, accuse you, cry, or try to convince you to stay. And this is completely normal. So let her express her feelings without feeling obligated to change your mind. However, be receptive, understand any anger she may show, because anger often masks sadness. So it's a very intense pain. Some people may cope with it in an angry way. And in that case, avoid reacting or counterattacking because it won't help at all. It's normal for the other person to suffer. If you were the one being left, you would feel the same way too. So try to acknowledge her emotions without feeling guilty and aim to remain neutral. 7. Support her if she needs it. So, if you have rent, bills, or other shared responsibilities, especially if you were living together, and maybe for some reason she was temporarily relying on you, it's only fair to help her find a practical solution before completely cutting ties. You can end things, but if she is not completely independent, you can consider giving her temporary support within reasonable limits. And still setting a deadline so that she knows she needs to make arrangements by that date. You can't just leave her out on the street or with a major problem if you're the one who decided to end things. Unless she has done something extremely serious like, I don't know, you caught her in bed with someone else. In that case, you might even be justified in kicking her out and leaving her with a problem. But if your love has simply ended, or maybe you're arguing and don't want to continue anymore, try to understand that the other person might, in some cases, need your support. So try to provide that support for a minimum period of time until she can organize herself to be independent. This too is a sign of respect. And remember, if you have children, your responsibility toward them does not end with the relationship, obviously. So you must ensure stability and above all your presence. 8. If necessary, and it almost always is, cut off contact completely for a period of time. Cut ties with this person because this is necessary to allow both of you to process the separation, and it is essential to avoid frequent contact. In this case, staying friends. Yes, but not immediately after the breakup, because doing so only prolongs the separation process and complicates things instead of making them better. When you and the other person have both processed the closure, found other people, and are at peace, most importantly, when you are no longer sexually attracted to each other, then you can remain friends. By the way, I made a video about when it makes sense to stay friends with someone, and I'll leave it up here for you. You can watch it now, or even better, at the end video. I'll also leave it down below in the description so you can open the description at the end of the video and watch it. 9. Don't go back out of loneliness or guilt. Please keep this in mind. A very common mistake people make is that after ending things, after maybe a few months, they start feeling nostalgic and lonely. Because after months, the negative moments are processed, the past negative moments are naturally softened by time, and so you start to feel the absence, nostalgia, and loneliness. Because in the end, maybe there were some beautiful moments with that person, and that's normal. However, getting back together for these reasons would only be a temporary palliative. It wouldn't last long, so avoid going back for these reasons. If you decide to resume a relationship with the person you were with before, that's fine. But you must be sure that both you and they have done inner work on personal growth so that you can be more mature and compatible for a new relationship. And finally, 10. If necessary, and sometimes it is, close your social media and reduce or eliminate online interactions. Because staying there, looking at photos, stories, statuses, and everything they do could make detachment more difficult. And also for them, try to avoid letting them see what you're doing now on social media, because this will help both of you feel better faster. In conclusion then, what can we say? That breaking up is indeed a complicated and difficult situation, but it can be a little less so if you manage to follow these points, these suggestions. Because after all, being together is certainly something healthy, beautiful, and valuable. If you manage to make it so, but if you can't because there are too many differences, which can happen and often does, then it's right to end it, and it's important to do so in the healthiest and most proper way. If you know that she is no longer the right person for you, ending things in the most mature way possible is an act of kindness and integrity for both of you, because a breakup handled with awareness allows you to turn the page without carrying unnecessary guilt or regrets. And remember that if you manage to end things the right way, you'll have a better chance of starting a new relationship, one that is more beautiful, healthier, more fun, and more enjoyable with someone else. On the other hand, if you don't manage to end things properly, you'll struggle a lot to have other relationships, especially healthy ones, in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, I'll leave a button here in the center for you to click and subscribe. And up here, I'll leave you 2 videos to explore these topics further.